Hello, and welcome to this session as part of the AWS Analytics Week. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Krishnan. I lead the machine learning partner business for AWS across EMEA. And over the course of this week, we have put together 5 different sessions to help you think about how you can unlock value from data. Now, this whole topic around data and becoming a data driven business is something that a lot of people are talking about. And what we are finding is that to build a business that sustains over a long period of time is not easy. It actually requires a level of reinvention multiple times over, very likely. And a good evidence of that is when you see the Fortune 500 list of 2000. In the last 20 years, only 50% of those businesses are still part of Fortune 500. Now, when cloud was introduced, it set off a whole generation of reinvention. And now we believe the next wave of reinvention will be driven by data. So as part of this week, we encourage you to think about what does it actually mean to be a data-driven business? What does a modern data strategy look like? Now at AWS, we've had over like 100,000 customers who are using data to be able to unlock value in their business. And these customers are looking at modernizing their data infrastructure, unifying their various data sources, and innovating new experiences with machine learning. And you will see through the course of these 5 days different examples. I'm delighted to be joined today with an esteemed panel. We've got John Brightwaite, CIO of Compass Group UK, Robin Meehan, who is the CTO and co-founder of InnoVisdom, and Ashley Mitchell, who is a go-to-market analyst specialist at AWS. I'm going to invite the panel to speak a little bit about their roles, and then we'll dive into the various questions. John, would you like to go first?
Thanks, Krishnan. So hi, everybody. I'm John Braithwaite. I've been a CIO for Compass UK and Ireland for just coming up to 2 years now. Previously, I held similar roles at McDonald's and some other large retailers. A bit about Compass. We're a FTSE 30 business and the world's biggest caterer. We operate in over 40 countries. In the UK, we've got about 6,000 retail outlets and employ about 50,000 people. And we provide catering across sectors such as education, healthcare, defence, for large offices, and for major sporting events and stadia.
Excellent. Robin, would you like to go next?
Yeah, thanks, Krishnan. So as Krishnan mentioned, I'm Robin Meehan. I'm the CTO and co-founder of InnoVisdom. InnoVisdom is an Amazon Premier partner, so that's the top level of the partnership tree. And our mission really is around helping customers to exploit all the latent value in their data and have the maximum impact from that. So to do that, we use the Amazon services. So we're delivering next generation descriptive and predictive analytics platforms using all the Amazon services. And what that means under the covers is we're doing data ingestion, integration, data management and governance, including getting into the realms of master data management. And then on the data consumption side, so the visualization and the machine learning data consumers from those platforms for business value. So as part of that, as you will see on the screen there, so we have the data and analytics competency and the machine learning competency. So those two things that go nicely aligned with what I've just described.
Excellent, Robin, thank you. Ashley, over to you. And as part of your introduction, I'd also appreciate if you can touch a little bit about how cloud-based analytics are now changing the marketplace and why customers are showing a renewed sense of interest in this space.
Thanks, Krishnan. Will do. So just by way of introduction, thanks everyone for joining. I'm Ashley. I work as a go-to-market specialist here, covering the analytics platform here. So before we get started, I just wanted to kind of talk to you a little bit around why our customers are looking to become more data-driven, and then some of the challenges in terms of the barrier to adoption. So we're constantly hearing from our customers that they want to extract a lot more value from their data, but there's a few challenges that they faced along the way. So as you can see on the slide here, data is growing exponentially. We're now collecting more data as businesses and individuals than ever before, and this is a trend that's certainly set to continue. On top of the fact that the data is growing, it's also coming in from various new sources as well. So a business might be working with data coming in from a database, an application, an ERP system, but more and more they might be working with data from external devices. Maybe it's social media data, maybe it's clickstream data, potentially it's sensor data. And as a result of all of these new different sources of data, you'll often find that the format of the data is increasingly diverse as well. So you could be working with structured, semi-structured, or completely unstructured data, which can become a bit of a challenge. And on top of that, you'll find that when you look to become a data-driven organization and embrace data more readily, all of the data and the analytics need to then be used by many different people as well as applications as well. And as a result of this, we're now seeing customers adopt a modern data strategy. So a modern data strategy is all around using a scalable data lake as the foundational layer for all of your data, and then using purpose-built database analytics and machine learning tools to basically drive the outcomes that you need to drive. And doing this with unified governance, with a low total cost of ownership, and also the agility that you need. And this is really where a modern data strategy starts. So as I mentioned, it all starts with using a data lake as the foundational layer. A data lake will allow you to ingest pretty much any volume, variety, or velocity of data in its pure native format. And then you can use a purpose-built analytics database or machine learning tool and use the right tool for the right job at the right time. So whether it's data warehousing you're trying to drive for fast querying, log analytics, big data processing, or working with relational or non-relational database engines, we offer the broadest and the deepest set of capabilities in terms of doing that. On top of this, you also need to be able to move data seamlessly from maybe outside in, but maybe also you need to move data around the perimeter, so between the purpose-built database, machine learning, and analytics stores as well. So these are really the reasons why we're seeing a lot of customers adopt a modern data strategy. And when you look specifically at AWS, here's what it looks like from an AWS lens. So from a data lake layer as the foundational element, we typically see that customers are using S3, and that's because it's got unmatched durability, availability, and security with regard to ingesting and storing your data. And then around the perimeter, as I mentioned, we've got a lot of different native analytics, machine learning, and database tools as well. So from a data warehousing perspective, we offer tools like Amazon Redshift. For log analytics and full text search, we offer the Amazon Elasticsearch service. For big data processing, we have tools like EMR. And then for your relational and non-relational databases, we offer Aurora and DynamoDB as well. And then for building, training, and deploying your machine learning models, a lot of our customers are using a tool like SageMaker in terms of doing that. When I mentioned around the seamless data movement, we offer AWS Glue in terms of achieving that. AWS Glue is our serverless data ingestion and transformation service. So hopefully this just gives you a brief overview around why customers are adopting a modern data strategy and the tools and technologies at your disposal from an AWS point of view. Back over to you, Krishnan.
Excellent. Ashley, thank you very much. And I can imagine this must be super liberating for customers who in the past have probably spent months and years just trying to get the basic infrastructure stood up. So I'm now very keen to understand how the Compass Group have driven their digital transformation journey and used data as a key foundation. So John, I'm going to start with you. Clearly, the food catering business has seen a fair amount of impact in the last few months with COVID. Can you talk us a little bit about the digital transformation journey Compass is undergoing right now, and what is the role of data within that?
Yeah, sure. So probably a little bit of background. The majority of our customer-facing systems were POS only, and so like many retailers, we realized that we needed to expand our sales channels to offer our customers a truly omni-channel experience. So we set up a digital team that was dedicated to developing and delivering our digital objectives. We purchased two innovative apps businesses, one based in India and one based in London, the UK. We've got different customer propositions from those two app businesses. They provide us with, or both provide us with, key capabilities such as order and delivery and click and collect. But importantly, those businesses also provide a brilliant foundation for us to build upon. We've partnered with some really innovative other apps-based businesses as well, and they generally provide great integration capabilities. So it allows us to integrate the technology that we're developing seamlessly with our customers' estates and also with existing customer apps as well. It's fair to say that COVID has accelerated our adoption of mobile, but I'd also say that it's slowed down other areas of our strategy. So we came into this process thinking that kiosk technology would play a really major part, and obviously COVID put the brakes on that. But it's still ongoing. It's still work that we're looking at, and I think it'll have a significant role to play in the future. So we're now extending our omni-channel experience for our customers. So we have shared menus, promotions, offers, loyalty, all of that. And we're developing new operating practices as well to within our catering business to cater for those. So why focus on data now? I think we inherently knew that there were significant advantage to becoming an insight-led business. We've been, and I've seen and led similar transformations in other businesses. So we knew that we'd need to combine data from many systems to achieve the full potential of that and to get a holistic view of our business. So we started the journey. We had no real-time or detailed data from our POS systems. It's worth mentioning we've got about 11,000 POS systems in the UK. From 37 different POS providers. At this point in time, we have near real-time data and information coming from all 11,000 of those POS, as we do from our apps as well. So this really greatly gives us the ability to understand our operations better and to perform better in terms of our decision making. It's worth mentioning we're going further than that. So we're gathering information now from the whole process of creating great food. This includes getting workforce management data. So we've just completed one of the biggest workforce management transformations in Europe across our 50,000 employees. And so in essence, now we have information about how we create and serve the food we sell. We're also retrieving purchasing and logistics data from our food buy business. So food buy is an arm of Compass that uses sophisticated technology to purchase almost £1 billion worth of food a year in the UK for use in our own restaurants and with non-competing customers as well. So now we have a detailed understanding of also what goes into creating the menus and the food that we sell. And that's not just ingredients and cost. It's also allergens information and increasingly things like carbon footprint. And then to complete the journey, we're adding customer satisfaction data and information as well, so that we can see what our customers liked and continue to improve the service and the menus that we offer.
Excellent. I mean, it just feels like different parts of the jigsaw starting to come together to hopefully provide a much richer picture on the business. Now, in my own experience talking with several CDOs and heads of analytics, I've seen different companies take different approaches to their data journey. Some start top down, focusing on the governance and those models. Some companies prefer to do one-off POCs and a little bit of experiments. Could you talk us through the mental model you approached in this space and how you've kind of gone about it?
Yeah, sure. So look, we started with an end vision in mind, I think it's fair to say, and that vision was to provide our businesses with detailed, near real-time information so that they can make both tactical and strategic decisions to drive our businesses forward. So we deliberately focused on prioritized use cases and incremental delivery of capability. It's fair to say as well that we used a pace layer approach to a lot of that, with focusing on two streams of activity, so getting quick wins and also then longer term strategic wins. And this approach has been really effective. It delivers constant value whilst driving fundamental change as well. It's fair to say that we had to adapt as our business colleagues became more aware of the potential that we were starting to unearth. Their priorities change, and sometimes they were driven by sort of strategic imperatives such as net zero, and other times by very specific priorities such as including data and insights as part of sales bids and retention bids.
Yeah, no, you're right. I think it's a delicate balance. On one hand, you want to get the teams excited, but not so excited that you're suddenly kind of full on. So that's interesting. Now, you as a company, you all chose Innovistum and you went after an implementation partner. What prompted you to look for an implementation partner? Was it mainly a capacity challenge?
Yeah, I think capacity always plays a role in these decisions. I think what we really understood is that we needed different skill sets at different points in what we understood would be quite a long journey, and so we wanted to partner with experts that were the very top of their game across the board, and also to utilise their experience. And in essence, that was to quickly navigate what we believe is quite a complex business, and so not only deliver great initial results, but also give us a platform to innovate going forward. Whilst budgets are always a really sort of front of mind consideration, our business has been extremely supportive of the data business case, and has been really prepared to invest and to drive for the right outcomes. And so it made real sense for us to partner with great businesses that would help us meet those objectives. I think as well, Christian, just to be really frank, we wanted to be seen to be partnering with tier one organisations, and I think our point is to make a statement that we're really serious, both internally and externally, about leveraging the tremendous potential of our data for the benefit of our clients.
No, thank you very much, and I appreciate both the vote of confidence on AWS and in terms of that strategy and selecting one of our top competency partners. So appreciate that. I'm going to give you a break for a while, John, and just shift the flows to Robin. We've just spoken about the role of Innovistum as an implementation partner. So Robin, tell us about how did you approach this project? There's so many moving parts. Clearly, the business is wanting to get value out of this, but just talk us a little bit as to how you navigated this journey and how you helped Compass from a time to value perspective.
Sure. So I think there's a few points to bring out here, and it's really building very much on what John has just said, unsurprisingly, so we're aligned to that. So I guess I'll start with a couple of the kind of more technical or challenges, and then I'll move on to the approach in a kind of a project sort of engagement management level. So I think this all starts with access to data. So one of the key challenges that organizations have, and we see this over and over again, is just access to the data. So in Compass's case, they've got this complex ecosystem of EPOS providers or POS providers across, as John said, 37 different providers. So guess what? They've all got different file formats. There's different stakeholders to manage. Some of them are, if you like, more kind of under Compass's control, and some are less under Compass's control. So it's an interesting mix, right? But I would say this is not unusual. So I think part number one of the project really is, or a key aspect, is just recognizing that and incrementally approaching those EPOS providers, agreeing specifications, and just all the things you need to do for basic data ingestion and integration. So that's obviously key, right? So I just wanted to bring that out. I think point number two is actually one of the other key, just from a technology sort of architecture perspective, one of the other key challenges in this domain, and again, very common across customers, is, I mean, most things all come back to master data challenges at the end of the day. And one of the challenges with this broad ecosystem of POS providers is that they're all using different code sets and product catalogs and so on. So again, there's not a great consistency in terms of some of the data sets, in terms of the kind of code sets they're using. So we have to solve that. It's in order for Compass to be able to provide holistic operational dashboards and metrics that mean that are kind of going across all those POS providers and are interpretable by the business. regardless of which systems the data is originally sourced from. That was a key problem to solve, and a key area that we looked at very early on, in fact. So we, in the end, so the approach we usually use natural language processing to tackle that, because it's too large for kind of a human keying approach, to map different vendor code sets to a common taxonomy. So we had a taxonomy down to level 1, 2, 3, which allowed us to map to a product hierarchy, but then in visualizations and analytics and downstream machine learning, so forecasting, for example, we can then have a consistent view of all the products that Compass are handling and selling and buying. So that's really key. And then on the project approach side, just echoing what John was saying, that I think that the key thing for me was around, so following John's steer, but also I think it's a mechanism for success, which is to it's like start small, get some flywheel effect and some business confidence, and get that moving. And I guess lots of business organizations, lots of business stakeholders have probably seen various data false dawns in their careers, right? So there's an element of giving confidence as well, but actions speak louder than words, right? So very quickly ingest some data, bring that through, create some initial relatively straightforward visualizations or dashboards, but just seeing all the data from all the EPOS providers for the first time in one place in near real time, as John was saying, rather than a day behind or a week behind or whatever it might be. That in itself is the kind of light bulb moment that then opens up the kind of pent up demand that you both referred to, that you've then got to manage in a considered way. And as John said, also the access to the raw data, that sort of democratization of access to data to a broader set of stakeholders, then means that the requirements and the interest you get might be slightly different to what you would have predicted. So it's kind of rolling with those punches and accepting that you're not going to predict all the needs going forward. So that kind of agile and focused on time to value approach, I think, is really key for success and for kind of then evolving it in the right direction.
Got it. No, that's very helpful. You're being characteristically humble by just saying simple visualizations, but I know the power of some of those tools, because when you actually put that up and people start to see what is possible with data, it certainly drives a very different mindset change. I want to touch upon and just go around the panel and get some inputs on what value did the cloud bring in this whole process. I mean, clearly, as you said, there is a whole bunch of data integration to be done. Ashley spoke about some of the tools earlier. But without getting into too much of the nuts and bolts, I'd love to understand, maybe Robin, starting with you, how the cloud helped you on the journey, and perhaps next I'll go to Ashley before going back to John on what was the value of AWS and the cloud in this whole journey.
Sure. So a few points to make there. I think something that actually John said to me the other day, which really resonated, and I guess I take for granted as an Amazon, the CTO and an Amazon Premier partner, I take for granted. But I think the full suite of services from AWS and the holistic set of services and how they integrate together, and so it's kind of that it's more than just the sum of the parts. I think that's a key element of it. Is the first point. So I think cloud brings it brings all the tools and kind of weapons and nicely integrated weapons in one box that we need, is the first point. So, and as I say, that's not something I think too deeply about, because we use them all and every day. But I thought it was a really interesting observation from John. So I mean things like, so there's the machine learning part. So we talked about NLP and forecasting, but also the visualizations and all the ETL and the storage and the different storage mechanisms, etc., etc., etc. I think another key element for cloud for us on our data analytics projects is just the serverless and therefore kind of on-demand or pay-as-you-go element to it. So essentially it's a kind of low distress purchase choice where we know we're not making huge sort of OPEX bets, if you like, and we're running, so the ETL for these 37 different POS providers is not a massive heartache in terms of the kind of operational costs, like it would have been some years back pre-cloud. And that's also true at all the layers I've mentioned, but like at the visualization layer, I think this is a really key point, which I may come back to, but I think historically, one of the barriers to data-driven organizations and sort of data democratization is just the access to the visualization tooling, which is inherently, had a high price tag sort of going back over years. And we've all seen projects where there's a kind of rollout of analytics tooling. It's like, well, we can only give it to 20 people in this department because of the license tag that goes with that. And again, those days are gone. So that democratization of access to data, by being able to provide QuickSight widely across the organization to the hundreds of people that are using it in production, and it not being a pay-as-you-go model for that as well. So kind of consumption based on top of that. So that really makes a massive difference from cloud, I think, that cloud model. And the last one, which again we tend to take for granted, but just the scale of cloud, the cloud solution, the ability to scale the solution up and down is just a given, right? So we again sort of take that for granted these days, but that's a massive factor and shouldn't be underestimated. So like I said, with COVID, for example, with Compass's business cycle shifting in ways that none of us could predict, right? The fact we can roll up and down with those punches is it's a fabulous feature that's great to have.
Excellent. No, that's some great points. Thank you, Robin. Ashley, anything else you'd like to add just from your experience with so many different customers?
So I think from mine, I'll air with a lot with what Robin's already touched on, but I really think it's around the breadth and depth of services that we offer. And it's really the ease of use, the getting started quickly. So with obviously AWS as cloud technologies, you can provision the infrastructure, the applications, the databases, the analytics suite a lot quicker than you ever could before. And that really allows you to become a data-driven organization a lot quicker. I think the other thing is around the agility to get on board and try new things quickly, fail fast if it doesn't work, to be able to scale up, to scale down, and have really that on-demand delivery of IT resources, and really having the end-to-end platform to just not enable an analytics project, but when you look into AI and machine learning, when you look into databases, when you look into all of these other different technologies as well. As I say, I really just think it's all around the breadth and depth of services that we offer here at AWS to really allow our customers like Compass to become a bit more data driven. I think that's what I see within the market today.
Thank you, Ashley. And then coming back to you, John, just based on what Robin and Ashley have said, just your own reflections in terms of how much value you see directly from the cloud, or is it mainly invisible for you?
No, I think there's a tremendous amount of value, and I would echo everything that Robin and Ashley have said. I think they've covered off some of the really key points, particularly around scalability, agility, the complete stack, the integrated tech stack. It's so important that we can use a one-stop shop and feels like a really great composite of tools and technologies for us. I think that the one area I would add is probably the promise of future development. It feels as though we're partnering with organizations that are continuously developing and particularly in terms of AI and those other areas, there's some really exciting opportunities for the future, and so it feels as though it's not just a partnership for short term. It's a partnership that will continue to develop and support our business longer term too. Very
true. I think just in the last year, I remember in 2020 we had over 250 new features and services added within our machine learning suite. So when you start to kind of add it all up across the platform, that's a pretty massive number. But the one thing that kind of resonated most with me was it's all good to say we need to be data driven, but you need to almost reduce the cost of failure. And I think what the cloud is allowing you all to do is from what I'm hearing from this group is by making it elastic, by making it pay as you go, it's just almost making many one-way doors seemingly now into two-way doors, so that you can go in, undo if need be, without breaking the bank. That's great. I want to now shift to a slightly different topic. When people think about data and being data driven, a lot of focus often goes into the platforms and the technologies and the solutions and do I choose product X, product Y? But we have seen this at Amazon and at many of our customers who've navigated this change successfully, that a key element is really driving that mindset change across the organization, bringing the operational teams on board. And I can imagine with the kind of transformation you have been going through as a business over the last 15 months, that would have been an interesting challenge. So John, can you just touch upon some of those elements? What were some of the war stories along that journey for us?
Yeah, it's probably worthwhile me just sort of setting the scene in terms of how we started this. So look, at a senior level within our business, there was already a real awareness of the potential and the benefits that we could get from leveraging our data. So we had good buy-in, I think, from the very start. Which obviously, if you're trying to sell a concept, it's great if you're selling to people that are already aware and excited about the prospects. I think we spent quite a bit of time just establishing what the art of the possible was. As you've rightly said, Christian, there was a whole plethora of potential benefits that we could start to drive from this. And so what we wanted to do is just understand where the real value lay. And we engaged with other consultancies to help us prioritize and deliver a sort of a high-level path to value, and to establish what best practice would look like in terms of our data organization. And what we ended up with is opting for a hub and spoke type model where we brought teams from center on board into the program, and allowed them or gave them the tools that enabled them to provide sort of in-depth analysis across our entire business. So finance teams, and I've mentioned earlier on food buy. So those sort of teams that hold sort of real expertise, which is relevant for the whole business. And then in terms of the spokes, we created smaller teams in each of the sectors, so each of our individual businesses, and they were focused on sector-specific analysis. So things like the effectiveness of particular campaigns, and customer engagements, etc. So in essence, what we did is had great support and really clear sight of our goals. And I think underpinned probably by what we thought and believe now was best practice. So you try these things out, and it feels as though it's coming right for us. It feels as though the organizational design is coming right. And that's allowed us to instill sort of data ownership at multiple levels within the organization and get that buy-in that you've asked about. I think in terms of learnings, there's lots you learn on a journey like this, actually. So I could probably go on for quite a while, but I think probably a key one is that I think not to be surprised when this really catches on within the organization. The requests for dashboards, for integrations from new data sets, for AI, all come in at a really tremendous pace. It's almost at one minute you're evangelizing about building a business case and what data can do, and the next minute you're sort of running to keep up. And I think that's very much what my team see at the moment. So look, we're moving to really promote self-service where it's practical. And I'll end on this. We rely an awful lot on our technology partners too.
Yeah, very true. I think in many ways, the model is about how do you enable those teams, and we speak about the word democratization, but it is truly that, where you start to give them ownership, not just in the form of go and access these things, but you take ownership of the data, and that is a very different mindset shift. Let's talk a little bit about the results you have seen. I know this journey is going to be an ongoing one. There are going to be many different paths on this, but based on the journey you've been so far, what are you able to share in terms of what this has benefited for you to date, and maybe perhaps just also touch upon what do you see as the future plans over the next 12 to 18 months?
Yeah, I guess there are obviously lots of benefits. I'll pick out two or three that are most pertinent to us. So look, real-time business insights was the reason we were looking to kick this program off, and they are absolutely front and center benefits for us. So directly driving operational improvement. And in the future, we'll grow that capability as we continue to integrate more data sources and get better and better at using the tools that are available to us. I think self-serve, clear, concise visualizations, dashboards, the ability to drill down into information, they're great drivers for our business to be able to really mine and get real value from what we're delivering, the capabilities that we're delivering. I think in terms of that, the future is going to be all about modeling, doing what if analysis, And it'll be really impactful, particularly in terms of that what-if analysis, to be able to drive better decision making. I think now and definitely more so going forward, one of the real benefits is going to be providing information directly to our customers. So a lot of what I've talked about so far is about inwardly facing, improving our own performance and our own decision making and the service we provide to our customers and clients. I think providing information directly to customers and differentiating our proposition in another way by directly adding value will be something else that we'll start to focus on in the future.
Very interesting. I recollect when we were discussing this earlier, you also mentioned how some of this data-driven change is being used in some of your proposals, almost as a way to differentiate Compass compared to some of your other service providers. So I think it's fair to say that people are almost starting to stretch the boundaries of what is possible with data. Is that a fair comment?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, and I think as excited as we get internally about getting that insight into how our business works and how we can sort of drive better decisions, I think our customers are also excited about understanding KPIs relative to our service and integrating some of that data with information they've already got in house. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very true. Keep raising the bar, keep pushing the envelope. I can see a few questions have started to come from the audience in the panel. I'm going to try and cover as much as we can now, and you know, whatever we are not able to cover, then we'll get back to you offline. So the first question is around what advice would you give to other leaders starting their data journey? This feels like a question for the whole panel. So I'm going to perhaps start with you, Robin, because you work with several customers and you've seen, I'm sure, your fair share of successes and what people are not doing right. But what would be your top maybe 2 or 3 pieces of advice?
Okay, I think that's a broad area. I think it'd be easy to talk about like the point that John made earlier about stakeholder buy-in. I mean, that's obviously massively central, but I'll skip over that because I think it's kind of a truism, but it's really important. So I don't want to just wanted to ignore it. I think again, the point that's just been alluded to on the sort of data democratization journey, I think that drive towards self-serve. So essentially our mission, as a technology provider in this process is really to just remove the friction from the process for between the business stakeholders and the data, and the kind of exploitation of value from that data. So self-service is, and as, again, back to the point that John made, the demands will exceed the ability of any kind of internal function to satisfy them entirely. There's a role for internally kind of managed dashboards, but anyway, that self-service point is really key. So I think that's a sort of success criteria for me of getting that working and getting it working well. Related to that is another success point for me, or advice point, is around, this does not mean that we're throwing data governance out the window. So the governance of data quality, the curation of data such that, so you've got data in this example, as we discussed, coming from different EPOS providers, curating that into a consistent format in a business taxonomy, not kind of system aligned names and columns, if you like, and taxonomy, but a business taxonomy is really key as an enabler for people to then self-serve without all that friction. So I think that's it's obviously a bit of a journey potentially, but that's really key as well. And then just the last bit of advice I'd just say, which as I mentioned earlier, is starting small and iterating quickly. Very Amazonian, I know, but that flywheel effect for me is really crucial, because as we all know from kind of agile projects, you know, however much you think you know what your customer needs, when you ship them a delivery, you really find out, right? So that's really crucial to get to that point quickly and then iterate from there.
Okay, thank you, Robin. Ashley, any words of wisdom to add?
I think when it comes to being a data-driven organization, as John has probably seen from the Compass story, it's all about having a top-level down mandate to become a data-driven organization. I often think that always helps. I also think it's worth defining how you're going to use data and analytics to transform the current business model that you have. And then really what I see is that when it comes to being a data-driven organization, it's really, I mean, I spoke about this in the presentation at the start, but it's around using data as a real asset within the organization. So ensuring that data is not kept in silos and in individual departments. So it's about ensuring that not only is it an asset, but is that the data becomes readily accessible. So that means that a lot of people throughout the business can securely access and analyze the data as and when they need to. And the third element is really all about ensuring that the data is really put to work, so that you're really using the data and the analytics to make better business decisions, to create operational efficiencies, to drive new innovations. And I think this really, to me, is what it means and how you become a data-driven organization.
Ashley, thank you. John, any guidance for your peers who might be starting off on the journey or probably midway through it?
I guess if I was to offer any advice, I'd echo what both Ashley and Robin have said. Obviously, they've covered off some of the key areas. Look, I think any CIO within any business needs to be an evangelist. So I think evangelizing about the art of the possible is super important to get that early buy-in. I think then engaging great partners that help build confidence in that initial buy-in, that sort of goals can be achieved is really important. I'm a great believer in incremental delivery. Agile incremental delivery is probably a better way of describing it, but in essence, constantly sort of proving the point that initial promise is being delivered, and it's not a big bang approach. It's the business is seeing value day in, day out. So over a series of quick wins, and I think all of that builds real momentum. And if you've got it right, because you get real pull and excitement from your business. So those are probably the only things I would add.
That's great advice. Really just think about governance, but don't kind of slow yourselves down. Start small, scale, and what we are hearing is don't try to kind of do it all alone. Where help is needed, be open to asking for help, because sometimes just getting off to a good start in itself can make a big difference. Is what I'm hearing from the panel. No, that's very helpful. The next question, John, is for you. One of the members has asked, did you face any resistance on this journey? We heard about how a lot of people got excited, but I'm sure all transformation journeys have their share of naysayers, or perhaps people who are not, maybe have tried this before and it hasn't worked. So did you face any resistance? And if you did, how did you deal with it?
Look, I think the honest truth is not a great deal, if I've got to be honest. I think there was initially maybe a little concern that migrating some of the more complex systems that have sort of grown organically over a number of years within Compass, so some of our finance systems, for example, trying to migrate that knowledge would be really difficult. Once we started to demonstrate how quickly we could bring the data across, and we could categorize that data, and we could start to drive even basic insights from it, and then start to develop sort of more sophisticated dashboards, we got real buy-in. So yeah, look, in summary, not lots of resistance, just probably professionals that were worried about how the systems they've worked with for many years were going to be migrated in. But we, as I say, we got the buy-in, and it's come good.
Excellent. No, thank you very much for being open and transparent. One final question. I'm going to share this with you, Robin. The question is about, some of these projects feel like they run into multiple months or quarters, or sometimes even years. How can partners help customers on this journey of really kind of starting small, proving value earlier? How are you helping? So if you want to just touch upon any ideas and how you're kind of helping customers break this into smaller chunks and de-risk, that will be helpful.
Sure. Okay. So I think there's a few strategies and accelerators to use there. So one strategy that we take is to take what we call a thin slice through the architecture. So what we want to do is we want to deploy the whole like next generation data platform all the way through to data consumption, so the visualization layer on our first iteration of a project. And that can be, so I think in Compass case, I think the initial proof of value was 4 weeks, I think. For some customers, we've done these kind of projects to MVP in 9 weeks, that sort of order. And that's what we're kind of aiming for. Obviously, it depends on the use case and the data and the domain and so on. And so, yeah, take a thin slice. So we're testing the whole architecture end to end, but with relatively small number of data sets and a small kind of target of what visualizations will be created for the business at the end, and then kind of pancake on. So then iterate from that point forward, right? So that'd be one strategy, is to think of it in sort of that dimension. I think using accelerators to just move it quicker is, and again, this fits in very nicely with cloud. So using infrastructure as code and our ability to deploy very quickly in a repeatable way across development and test and production, have real confidence about our ability to do that and use accelerators. We have an accelerator in Wisdom called RAMP, which is our rapid analytics machine learning platform that gives us all the framework we need to deliver these kind of projects. So that's really nice and reproducible and allows us just to move quicker and can essentially get going on kind of day 2 with a secure Amazon deployment that we can trust and is, you know, credible to a CISO conversation and challenge. So I think that's really key. And then I think the third thing, I guess, is just the mindset of the approach that we've all been talking about finding a way to slice up the business value. So one of the things I would say about my thin slice point is it has to be kind of a business meaningful outcome even from the first slice. It's not a it's not a technology proof. It's got to have some kind of business outcome. That's exactly how it was with Compass. This initial view across all the sectors for EPOS data that just wasn't really visible before. So, you know, what's not to like, right? Once you show that. So that would be my take on that, I think.
No, that's great, and what's especially heartening here is, you know, the way you've described this whole thing is a matter of weeks and not months, quarters, and years. So when you take that kind of a mindset, then I think even for customers, you know, and some of the techniques you mentioned earlier around natural language processing, because you've done this at other customers, what I'm seeing is another customer doesn't have to start from scratch. They can benefit from much of those reusable architectures and those principles and processes just to be able to make sense of the data, build those foundations and the pipelines. And then from there on, if at any stage they want to start taking it over and running it on their own, just having that foundation helps them move a lot faster. Would you agree?
Absolutely. I think that this area is got very mature patterns and practices now, and we've been through it many times. And so that also both at a kind of intellectual level of understanding what to do and how to tackle the problem, if you like, tackle the challenge, but also at a technical level of having assets to reuse. Both of those give that acceleration. So yes, I think it's not an undertaking to be taken lightly, right? These projects can still be challenging because the data's diverse and all the things we've talked about. But it's also very executable in a very concise time frame, I think.
It is, and of course, you know, one of the topics we haven't really touched upon today, but it's probably the topic of a whole new webinar in its own right, is the whole area of ML ops. I mean, it's all great to build these machine learning models, but how do you make sure they're integrated into the business process and those models are continuously retrained? So, but you know, I don't want to start a whole new thread on that, but it's still a key area which, you know, once you have all that intelligence, how do you make sure it actually fits within the business process? Excellent. We are out of time. There are a few more questions which we will try and get back to the group, you know, after the webinar. Ashley, if you can just bring the slide up. I just want to remind people of a couple of things before we wrap up. So as I said, you know, again, thank you all for being patient, and I hope you enjoyed this discussion of how the Compass Group have approached, you know, their data analytics strategy with the cloud-first approach. Over the course of this week, you can see there are 4 more customer stories. All of these are driven from, you know, how different customers have been navigating their data journey. And I think you'll find that there are some common threads in all of these, but there are also nuances that are very unique to every business, cross-cultural, you know, federated versus, you know, centralized or decentralized approaches. So I take the time to learn, understand what different stakeholders and senior leaders are doing, and how you can benefit. So I wish you good luck. And I hope you kind of get the most out of this and enough inspiration to start your own data journey. If you can move to the final slide, Ashley. So here are some contacts. As I said, we'll be in touch with those of you who have any questions. If you want to put it in there, you can also get in touch with our partners at InnoWisdom or any of us on LinkedIn, and we'll be happy to answer any further questions. But with that, I'd like to thank our panel, Robin, John, and Ashley. Thank you all for your time. It's been lovely. I've certainly learned a lot just listening to all of you, and good luck, John, on what the journey ahead has in store.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Bye all.